UFC 282 went down on Saturday last night in Las Vegas. It was not the stacked year-end pay-per-view, but it still featured some meaningful matchups and memorable finishes. As always, there's only one question that comes in my mind after watching a UFC event, and that is who should these fighters face next. So without wasting further time, let's start the video. Starting with the main event of the evening, which was light heavyweight title bout that ultimately ended with a draw, which further clouded the light heavyweight title picture. While most fans were probably expecting the UFC to book Ngannou vs Blachowicz rematch for the title, UFC President Dana White instead announced at the UFC 282 post-fight press conference that Teixeira will be fighting Jamahal Hill for the light heavyweight title at UFC 283 in Brazil next month. It seems like the most appropriate thing to do would be to rebook this fight as the contenders bout it was supposed to be. The UFC just needs to realize that it cannot be a pay-per-view main event, stick it on the fight night instead. Whoever wins that bout will surely get the title shot again. Let me start off by saying that I firmly agreed that Pimblet lost the fight against Gordon just like everybody else. But here we are, the baddie will now move on to the next phase of his career, which should be a tougher matchup. The UFC will probably give him another favorable matchup, maybe an inconsistent prospect or fading veteran like Michael Johnson. But we'd like to see him matched up with another rising contender like Grant Dawson. If he doesn't fight Michael Johnson, then Dawson is the great opponent for him, who has an impressive record of 19 wins and just 1 loss. That is comparable to Pimblet's record, which is 20 wins and 3 losses. Matt Frevola is ready for a ranked opponent but would surely settle for Paddy Pimblett, who is easily one of the most popular fighters in the sport. If Dawson wins, he needs a top 15 contender, and if Pimblett pulls it off, the same goes on for him. Ponzinibbio and Robbie Lawler were originally set to collide at this event before Ruthless was forced out with an undisclosed injury. Alex Morono took the fight at last moment, but he sadly lost the fight. The only logical step to take is to rebook Lawler versus the Argentinian sometime in 2023, assuming Ruthless Lawler can return in a suitable time frame. South Africa's Dricus du Plessis was one of the biggest winners of Saturdays, defeating former welterweight title challenger Darren Till by submission in a high-stakes middleweight clash. It was his 4th win in 4 UFC fights, and it should push the division's 14th ranked contender right to the cusp of top 10, where bouts with the division best fighters await. There are 3 contenders in the middleweight division who doesn't have a fight yet, and their names are Andre Muniz, Marvin Vettori and Roman Dolidze. Vettori is always looking for a fight and willing to take on lower ranked opponents. Vettori also tweeted on du Plessis' win that it is an easy money fight for him. Dricus du Plessis vs Marvin Vettori will be a fun fight, and it's a chance for du Plessis to show everyone that if he's an easy opponent or not. The best performance of the night, in my humble opinion, was Poirier's dominant victory over Bryce Mitchell. He absolutely big brothered him all night long. That victory is more than enough to put him on high stakes, and now he deserves an opponent in the top 10 or maybe even in the top 5. Poirier stands currently at number 14. In the post-fight press conference, Poirier called out Brian Ortega, which is a bold call out to say, but it's a fun fight. Therefore, Ortega is still healing from a bum shoulder, so let's shelve that idea for the time being. If we are ready to put him against the top 5, then Brendan Allen makes sense. Giga Chikadze, Chan Sung-jung and Kelvin Keter, they are all coming off losses, leaving Allen as the only logical option. Just like Poirier, Allen has been on a roll and actually has twice as many victories inside the octagon as Ilya. If Poirier vs Brendan Allen happens in future, that's a fun fight, and the winner would surely get a title shot against the interim champion or maybe even against the undisputed champion. Some other fights that make sense after UFC 282 are Alex Morono vs Tim Means, Darren Till vs Chris Weidman, Bryce Mitchell vs Dan Ige, Chris Daukaus vs Tanner Boser, Edmund Shabazian vs Jung Yong Park, Buckley vs Chidi Anjokwani, Billy Quarantillo vs Charles Erosa, Chris Curtis vs Roman Dolidze, Jairzinho Rozenstruik vs Marcin Tibura, and Raul Rosas Jr. vs Mana Martinez would be a good small step up for the young prospects. If you like the video, make sure to hit the subscribe button and stick with the channel for more UFC related upcoming videos.